All right, welcome into the Oshner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio for today's episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. Coming to you from our spot next door to my guy, Matt Bowers, best car dealer in the whole entire galaxy. If you're going to buy a car, check him out. That's my guy. He'll take care of you. Tell him I sent you, and you'll get the best price that you can get. We got a lot of stuff to talk about on today's show. I'm Nick Underhill. That's Mike Triplett, Brandon Thomas. Mike Triplett, yeah. Brandon's
Nice
back there. Brandon's back there running the producer seat. He's in the house. He's up in Tennessee somewhere. Devin's here. Joe's here. Devin's blowing up on Instagram right now with the Zion picture. Shout out to Big Dev. Yeah, but we got a good show for you guys today. We're going to start out talking about Derek Carr's contract. He made some news this week talking to Catherine Terrell of ESPN. Kind of had a quote that got people fired up. I'm going to read it for you here. He said, quote, "I wouldn't take a pay cut. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, especially with what I put on tape. Would I restructure? Absolutely. I'll always help the team that way. But there's some things that you put out there that you earned. Even in some cases, it could be even worse. But I felt confident when I signed it that this would give the team the best flexibility at the time. But there's always a kind of respect as a quarterback. You're like, well, still, we're in that respectable lane. We're good, build the team. But yeah, I wouldn't take anything less to do this. It's hard enough putting our bodies through it, and you're eventually trying to get everything you can for your family for it." Let's start there. What do we make of that quote?
Well, I believe him. I mean, I theorized on whether a pay cut would be a possibility last week when I wrote about Carr's situation, and one of the reasons I thought it might not be is because of how his Raiders situation ended, which was, kind of a bitter divorce where he didn't think that team was respecting him enough, and he came to New Orleans wanting more respect. So asking a guy to take a pay cut obviously comes with a lack of respect every once in a while. I wonder, though, that he's right. We've said this a million times. I think Derek Carr is being paid in the correct tier that he's in. Like, it's what Baker Mayfield's contract was like before he proved himself again this year in Tampa. It's like around where Geno Smith's contract is. It's like 16th, 17th among veterans in the NFL, and there's all those rookie deals, so it's really outside of the top 20. He deserves to want and feel like he earns that level of contract. The problem is, though, if the Saints decide to cut him, he's not getting $40 million from another team next year. He's just not. There's not enough teams that need quarterbacks. He's right on that cusp. There's probably about 2 or 3 teams that'll sign a veteran this year. He's going to be out there with Kirk Cousins, maybe Sam Darnold, maybe Russell Wilson. He's not going to get $40 million. So I would like to think that the biggest win-win in all of this would be that he actually would take a pay cut, and that the Saints would keep him at $15 million instead of $40 million. It just seems like that's really, really unrealistic, and then he'll go and make $15 million somewhere else. Unfortunately, that's the way it works sometimes. But we've said it a million times, and we can talk about all the salary ramifications. But I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. Like, I'm fine with if the Steelers want to sign Carr for $40 million, if the 49ers wanted to not pay Brock Purdy and sign Carr for $40 million, I think he could win in those places. I just don't want the Saints to pay anybody $40 million this year because of where their roster's at and because of where their salary cap's at.
I mean, they could spend $40 million on someone better than Carr in my book. Like, and I'd be cool with that, and then fill out the roster.
If somebody was really better than Carr, but I wouldn't do it for Sam Darnold. I wouldn't do it for Russell Wilson. I wouldn't do it for Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't do it.
No,
for
but I'd do
it for Mahomes
for the right quarterback, and then go all in around somebody, which they haven't done. Can I go on my soapbox for a second before we get into the Carr thing? We have to stop. That's me. We have to stop.
Do we have a soapbox in here? Go get a soapbox.
We have to stop doing the restructuring is helping the team narrative. It does not help the team. Okay. Nobody's doing the team a favor. You're getting the same exact money when you do a restructure. It isn't, oh man, he did something to altruistic to his future to help the team. If you restructure your contract, you are getting the same amount of money, oftentimes in a lump sum, which allows you to then go invest it or whatever. B, if it's not guaranteed money already, it becomes guaranteed. It is a benefit to you, and you get the same money. And in the Saints case, and specifically in Derek Carr's case, there is Section 6 in his contract, which reads automatic conversions. Player and club agree that on one or more occasions at any time during the duration of this contract, club shall have the right, but not the obligation to, 1, convert any portion of the player's paragraph 5 salary set forth in the contract. That's what we call the base salary, and into signing bonus, or 2, convert any portion of all of the roster bonus, if any, set forth in this contract into signing bonus. If club exercises its right to convert such paragraph 5 salary and or roster bonuses as provided herein, club shall use the same form of signing bonus addendum language as stated in the contract, except that 1, such converted paragraph 5 salary shall be payable in equal weekly installments concurrent with paragraph 5 salary, and so on and so forth. Basically, in layman's terms, what that says is he's already agreed to convert anything that would be restructured. And from Derek's point of view, if they restructure the contract, absolutely nothing changes because he's getting the payments in the same exact schedule that he's already agreed to get them in. Like sometimes when you do it, it turns it into a signing bonus and the signing bonus gets paid out up front. This is already saying that it'd be done in weekly installments as set forth on the same schedule as the base salary. So like it does nothing. And this isn't about Derek. This is more us in the media thing that we'll be like, well, he's like helping the team. It doesn't.
What a teammate!
It doesn't.
He should win Man of the Year.
He isn't doing anything. The team, they're just like, we're going to restructure this. Your money's guaranteed, and you might get a lump sum, but it's guaranteed no matter what. And all right, cool. 2, going to the Carr thing. Like, I don't blame him for saying I'm not taking a pay cut.
Yeah.
Like you agreed to a contract, and if you're on one side of the contract and you're like, no, they're going to honor it or they're going to fire me, cool, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I didn't necessarily love the quote in that it's like, well, check the tape. Well, like, bro, like I agree you had a better season than most people think, but it's not out of the question to say like, hey, Derek, you're making 40. It kind of feels like you're worth a little bit less than that. Like that's not an outrageous sentiment at all. Like in saying that is like, just so, just do the Cam Jordan thing. If I'm Derek's PR person, like I don't really have a problem with like his point of view at all. But if I was his PR person, I'd be like, yo, if they ask you this, and to the behind the scenes on this story is that like Kat didn't even ask him if he'd be willing to take a pay cut. Like he just brought it up himself. Like he volunteered that information. Must be aware that the narrative's out there. But if I was Derek's PR guy, I would just be like, hey, just say like, I'm going to leave it to my agent.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Hey, if they approach me like, I let my agent handle my contracts, I'm going to let them handle that. And we'll go from there. Like, just don't, like, there's no value in being like, no, I'm not doing this. But we've seen how Derek operates and like, I think he'd force a cut before he takes a pay cut.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Look, and I agree that that's probably what Carr's PR person should tell him. But look, Carr has entered stick up for himself mode probably about 6 years before he even got to New Orleans. Like this has been a long time for him where like there's a narrative about him and he takes it personal, as he probably should. So if he wants to stick up for himself and defend himself, I mean, as we said, he said he was playing the best football of his career. He's got a passer rating of like 100 with the Saints, and everybody acts like, he's the biggest disaster they've ever seen. So I understand him defending himself, fighting back against the narrative. But the reality is just that, it's $40 million is an awful, awful lot to pay for anyone in his tier, and $40 million, and I think there's 29 teams that should be paying that ahead of the Saints. The Saints are the last team that should be paying any quarterback in that tier. Like I said, I mean, I don't think the Saints should trade for Baker Mayfield. I don't think the Saints should sign Sam Darnold, and these are guys who are being celebrated this year.
Who are the 3 after the Saints?
Other teams that should not want.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, obviously there's teams who already have rookie quarterbacks. They shouldn't do it. But like, if you're just like, I don't think the Tennessee Titans should go out and pay $40 million for Carr because they're not going to win yet.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like the last piece to me. But really you have to be in salary cap hell to also be the Saints. You have to be not ready to win, and you need to be $80 million over the cap. So I guess the Saints are the only team that falls into that category.
That's the thing. The team needs to be built. Like he's the guy that comes in after like what's Sam Darnold if you take away Justin Jefferson? He's probably not 2024 Sam Darnold. You take away Justin Jefferson. What's Baker Mayfield if you take away Mike Evans? Like he's probably not that. Like Derek Carr's a guy that
Goff is a great example.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
the ideal circumstances in Detroit.
Yeah, all built around him. Great play caller.
Purdy in San Francisco. Yeah. Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, like he's got a little bit less help, but it's a decent team. But like if you take the best receiver in the league away from Sam Darnold, like he's not someone that anyone's hyping up. Like Derek Carr is someone that goes in after you have like your team built and you have everything around him. It's kind of like I don't know. Like it's just it's paying full price for something
Yeah.
and then not having all the pieces around it. You know, it's like renting a car with a bad alternator, and it's just like, well, like good luck, but you
Yeah.
still got to pay full price for it. But like, no, you got to fix the alternator if you want to get down the road with them. It's not the right situation for him. If you aren't going to build it out around him, it's not it. But I don't think Derek Carr is worth $40 million for any team in the NFL. He's not a $40 million quarterback because he needs all this help. Like I understand the idea of it at the time. Quarterback insecurity probably makes you kind of do some things. It kind of makes the Browns pay Deshaun Watson. It makes the Saints get in those conversations. It makes Atlanta get in those conversations. It makes Atlanta sign Kirk Cousins and draft Michael Penix, and one of the two is going to work. And they might have figured it out if the season's any preview. But it was a bad decision. He's not worth $40 million, and like. I understand if you pay him it because the contract is what it is, and it's very hard to hit the escape clause on it and still have a competitive team. But that doesn't mean that you should keep him. Like the ideal scenario is to get him out of here or get him on, 30 million, 25 million. That's why I think it's
and
worth
I don't
it.
even agree necessarily that it was a bad decision. Like I think I was even more skeptical of it than you at the time. I remember we had like this long argument. Garoppolo was kind of a high profile free agent at the time. I'm like, God, I don't want to see the Saints spend all that money on a quarterback. But I got it in 23. And I'm reading from an article that I'm going to publish soon. But at that time, they still had Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Ryan Ramczyk, Taysom Hill, Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, forming the nucleus of a strong team. So at the time when they did it, at least I understood the logic behind it. They don't have that nucleus anymore. They're in worse salary cap shape now. And he cost $10 million more. He was $30 million each of the last 2 years. Now it bumps up to $40 million. It's time to admit that, hey, that was worth trying then. It's not worth trying now.
Yeah. I guess more what I'm saying though is like I got it at the time, but like when you have the hindsight, like you wish someone would have had the foresight in the moment to maybe say like, okay, let's have a way to get out of this a little bit sooner. Yeah. We're going to try to see if we can keep our old core together, and then it's time to move on. But like it's just run its course to me. And the wild thing is though is I don't think it's impossible for them to have an offseason which would allow them to win this terrible division with him as their quarterback.
Right.
I don't think that's impossible, but I don't think it's a noble cause anymore.
Right.
I don't think it's a noble cause anymore. So,
and the other part of this conversation is I think it's the biggest like I don't know if cheat code's the right word, but like there's a word I used before, but disparity, whatever it is, in NFL quarterback salaries is the tier right below him is free. Like Justin Fields can be free. Russell Wilson might be really cheap. Jimmy Garoppolo will cost $5 million this year. So when you look at what costs $40 million and what costs $5 million, that makes it even more. Like if all those guys cost 35 and then 30 and then 25 and then 20, okay, maybe. But those guys cost 1/8 as much as he costs.
And he's probably better than Jimmy, but he's not $35 million.
8 times better than Jimmy, yes.
And just to answer the question that's on the screen or in the title of the show or whatever, breaking down Derek Carr's contract, he is currently on the books at a $51 million cap number this year, $30 million base salary. So if they were to restructure it, it'd be that $30 million. If you were to just cut him outright today, you have $50 million in dead cap space. You would save $1.3 million. You get $1.3 million back to go invest in your next quarterback.
But as I've pointed out a million times, the difference is if you keep him, it's $50 million this year and $30 million next year. If you cut him, it's $50 million this year and none next year. That is a significant difference if you're thinking long term.
I think the math that they have to do is that if you keep him this year, you're basically there's no relief if you cut it. You're spending the money for a player who's not here. If you cut him a year from now, it ends up being $28 million. So like they have to do the arithmetic on like how to allocate those assets over a 2-year window. And I think the one thing that people don't really add into it ever too is then there's the cost of replacing him on top of it, which becomes part of the bigger balloon. But yeah, you cut him now, you move on. Go be ass and have the pick.
And then you really have real relief in 26. The category I put this under is Derek Carr / catching up on the cap / actually tanking. You're kind of making all three of those decisions at once. You have to be bad for a year if you're willing to do this, because not only do you lose your quarterback, that I do think is 2 or 3 wins better than the alternatives, if he plays a full healthy season, but you're also limiting your ability to spend money on anyone else. You probably can't keep Paulson Adebo. You probably can't sign any upgrades anywhere else. You probably can't keep Juwan Johnson. You probably can't spend $10 million on a different quarterback. So if you do cut Derek Carr, it means you're kind of taking the year off.
Yeah. And before we move on though, like I am going to make one point though. Like I don't think it's impossible. Like while I think it's time to do that, I don't think it's impossible for us to be sitting here in October if they hire the right coach that brings in the right culture and just kind of gets them on a path that we aren't sitting here in October and being like that. Oh, like what.
They're 5-6.
Yeah. Oh, like can they win? Can they beat the Bucks out for the South title? I don't think it's impossible.
Not impossible. The hard part is, I would do it. I would switch from Carr to Rattler. It would lower their Vegas number from 7.5 wins to 5.5 wins or whatever. But they could beat the odds. The bigger problem is the idea that they can't spend. They would have to spend $0 in free agency. That they can't even add like 3 or 4. They can't add a Nathan Shepard and a Foster Moreau.
Let me ask
what
this.
I mean? Like,
I'm going to go around the room with this one too.
Yeah.
Like if he's owed $80 million over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Cash is base salary. They still got to pay out $80 million of actual cash.
90,
yeah, whatever.
90.
The base salary,
it's 50
with the roster bonus. Yeah. They got to pay that out $90 million over the next 2 years. Cash.
Yeah.
If they win the next 2 NFC South titles, is he worth $90 million?
Sure. I'd take 2 NFC South titles.
B says no. You are paying $90 million for 2 NFC South titles?
No.
Just the NFC South title.
You're hosting a first-round playoff game.
They can't hear you, so let's just get a yes or no.
B gave a big thumbs down. He's torn. He's conflicted.
Devin says yes. Joe says no.
Okay, but look,
I say yeah.
Let me make a comparison that we just made over
But that's
text.
the only way it's worth it.
Yeah. Let me make a comparison that we just made over text. Kevin and I, if you listen to the Members Only podcast, we've argued over this. He does not agree with me on this. The last 2 years, Tampa Bay and New Orleans were in like identical cap situations. Tampa Bay also decided to promote Todd Bowles to head coach, very similar to promoting Dennis Allen to head coach. They signed Baker Mayfield. The Saints signed Derek Carr. They kept Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Levante David instead of totally rebuilding. They were picked to finish last in the NFC South, but they went 9-8 last year and won a playoff game. They went 10-7 this year. They won the NFC South again. And we saw these tweets about people should consider Jason Licht for Executive of the Year. He's so underrated. That easily could have been what happened in the Saints. It could have gone 9-8 and won the NFC South last year, 10-7 and won the NFC South last year. He doesn't think Kevin's argument is that's not a noble goal. I would say that's a noble goal. That would have been successful.
I'll say this: like I think if you win the next 2, paying Derek's worth it. But if you give me the choice of where I kind of know the ceiling is on that, or where I know the ceilings is on the Bucks, and if you say at this point.
Yeah.
Like if you asked me this question, I don't even know if last year my answer would have been the same, but at this point I would say probably just let me say something else.
Well, the difference is 2 years ago, I believe that was realistic. I saw a 10-win team. As I said, that Michael Thomas and Ryan Ramczyk were still a part of the thinking when they signed Derek Carr, not to mention all DeMario and Cam and Alvin being 2 years younger. I don't see it now. I don't see a path to 10 wins. I used to see a path to 10 wins. I don't see it anymore, and that's the difference.
That's why. I mean, I agreed with their moves at the time because I thought they would actually like be winning 10 games, and they were close, but it just didn't. It's just not worth it. Like you have one more win to last year's total. Like,
yeah,
man, who cares? Like, all right, moving on to the next topic, presented by Urban South. There are multiple head coach openings now. The Raiders opened up today or yesterday actually, and today Tom Pelissero of NFL Network had a report that they reached out to Bill Belichick to see if he'd be willing to leave North Carolina, which would be incredibly interesting. Tom Brady
did not see a report that he would be though, and
no,
I'd be
but
surprised.
Tom Brady's leading that search. The fact that like he reached out, it's like it's fascinating. I'll say this. I wouldn't be told. Bill's walked out on a job already.
Yeah.
Like, it's not completely out of character for him. I'll let you start off with this one. I talked to somebody this morning, actually. One of the candidates, someone tied in with one of the candidates, asking them kind of what they thought about the situation. I'll share that insight in a minute. Okay. But where do you rank them? Like, let's rank the openings.
Well, it's funny. I also talked to someone tied in with one of the candidates who, was probably also trying to sell their candidate, but they were singing the praises of the Saints job exactly for the reasons we speculated, which is if you're a coach that just is like, just get me in the door and I will build my program. I just need the time and the patience and the support from ownership and the general manager. That is something coaches actually see in New Orleans. I think they lose out in every other category: their cap space, their current roster, their quarterback situation, their draft slot. Like, the Saints do not have anything going for them except for the, and look, and if you need Derek Carr to be your quarterback, we'll go get you Derek Carr as your quarterback, and we will not fire you, even when the fans and media are calling for you to be fired. That is the one thing going for the Saints, but it's still going to be very low on this list for me. Number one is probably New England, because they have Drake May, they have Christian Gonzalez, and tons of cap space. So you get to go there and you get to build whatever you want, and you have cap space and they have the number 4 pick in the draft. Number 2, I guess I would go with the Bears because of Caleb Williams, cap space. I hate their division, though. That's short-term thinking, but you still do have to deal with Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit there. 3, I guess I'd go Jacksonville. It probably would have been better if they had also fired their GM, giving you, the chance to be the top dog there. And I know Trent Baalke isn't widely respected around the league, and they have Trevor Lawrence, but he's expensive. 4, I guess the Jets, only because they have more talent, but the Woody Johnson as a wild card owner and the fact you might get fired sooner there makes it closer than I think people think. 5, Saints, and 6, Raiders, because the Raiders will fire you after a year and not necessarily support you and not necessarily have a clear plan. The Brady of it all might make them a better job now.
I don't know. I mean, that's that might be the hardest division in the NFL.
Which one?
The Raiders.
Yeah.
Like, that is a brutal, like, you're going to go compete against Sean, Andy Reid, and Harbaugh. Like, and you don't have anything to build around. Like, that's tough, man. Like, I don't know if you even get time to build it out. So, yeah, I think that's last. I agree, it's last. I don't know if Tom Brady shakes that up.
And they also don't have a quarterback. And what's their pick? 6. So, yeah, they would have to do a lot of maneuvering. They'd have to sell multiple first rounders to get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and if those guys are even the solution. So their quarterback situation is similar to the Saints right now.
Yeah, to me, it's probably Pats at the top, just clean slate pretty much, and Drake May. And as you said, the Bears. I think Caleb gets someone to go there, but he's I don't know. I don't know what to think of him. He's
a year ago, I'd have felt a lot better.
Incredibly talented, a little bit frightening as a player and as a personality. Like, I don't know what you're going to get out of him. He could end up being great though, but much less of a sure thing than it was a year ago. And then I honestly think it's take your pick from there with the Raiders last. Like, I could see someone liking Jacksonville more than the Jets or the Saints because they have a lot of good young players and their owner spends a ton of money. But I could see someone absolutely being like, who the hell wants to work with Trent Baalke? Like, I'm not doing that. So that makes it a little bit tough. Woody Johnson, you could sell yourself on that roster and wanting to be in the big market, but you could also say, I don't want to work with Woody Johnson and I don't want to deal with this media corps in this big market. So that could be a negative. The Saints, obviously, you could look at it and say, well, they have an owner who spends money and a front office that's incredibly patient, but you might also say they don't have any cap space and their roster's old. And, I don't know how they kind of view the future of this thing. So
before you give us your insight that you got today, I do want to say this is a great looking board for the Saints. Like, if you're hiring a head coach, this is the best you could hope for. Sometimes there's 10 or 12 on this list and a clear top 4. The fact that there's only one definitely better than yours and a couple that are maybe better than yours is really, really that's the best thing about the Saints' current coaching search.
You hope Dallas doesn't hit, though, because then I think that kind of starts to screw things up a little bit. And then, Mike McCarthy comes into play, and I think he'd be of high interest to the Saints if he became available. But I don't know, if you're looking beyond McCarthy though, and it's like, well, AG's 1, he's 2, McCarthy's 2, 3, whatever he would be on your list. If he's not number 1, it could get screwed up because then I think Dallas becomes a highly attractive job. Like, that's a pretty good roster with an owner that spends a lot of money. If you're cool with Jerry, I mean, I could see you ranking it above any of the, and a lot of people grow up wanting to be the Dallas Cowboys coach. Like, it's just one of them jobs. So that would shake the whole thing up. You'd prefer the Raiders not being added either because somebody could pick them over the Saints, but I doubt they would. But yeah, I mean, look, I think the view on this job is this, that like there's obvious hindrances. Like the salary cap situation is terrifying, and I think people look at the roster and say, "What's on this roster?"
Yeah.
Like beyond, like I think there's some people where you could immediately feel like you could have success, but there's really not anything that says like, "Okay, I'm going to be good in 3 years." And I think the that's kind of at the crux of your decision if you're trying to decide, is the Saints a good job? Like the problem is that I think people view it, and I heard this even before from someone else. It was a less dramatic answer that I heard today, but I heard, I know around the league, a lot of people view it as like a 3-year teardown. The person I was talking to today, like they felt like it was a 2-year, like I need 2 years to reset all this. And are they actually going to be behind it? Like that's the question kind of at the crux of it. My insight, my reporting leads me to believe that the answer would be yes, that they would be behind it. But I think the real question here is who do they hire? Like, as you're interviewing people, are you hiring somebody that comes in and says, I hate your roster and I want to tear it down and rebuild it? Like if they view it in the front office, like, well, no, like I think we're kind of close.
Yeah.
What happens there? I don't know what the viewpoint is on the roster. I don't know if they're willing to tear it down or not, but I think that's the crux of the answer. Like if the answer is like, yeah, they're willing to do whatever direction that the coach that they like wants to go, I do believe it's a solid job. Like there's obvious hindrances, but that patience is there, and there's an owner that will just spend the money. Like she'll just spend the money and leave the football stuff, like usually, until it gets to the point where it's like something has to happen. She'll trust her football people, and I think that makes it a positive in that sense. But there are obvious drawbacks, and I think you kind of do have to get this job with the knowledge that like you got to be able to rebuild it. Like being able to rebuild it, I think, is the only thing that makes it a good job. If it's stay the course and keep going, I don't think it's a great job. And I would rank it differently if that's what it has to be. And I think, that's going to be the answer to the question through this interview process.
If you want to be optimistic about the Saints, which is kind of hard right now, the person you can look to is Sean Payton, because he went to Denver and cut Russell Wilson and absorbed the largest cap hit in the history of the NFL. And people are like, what the hell are you doing? And then they didn't have a pick until 12, and he got the 6th best quarterback in last year's draft class, who he believed in, and they're in the playoffs. And their roster wasn't like teeming with talent. They actually got rid of Jerry Jeudy, probably the highest profile player on their roster, outside of Patrick Surtain. He's an absolute stud. But that was because he is a good coach with a good plan and a good vision, and picked his quarterback who could run his offense. And so if you get a coach good enough, sometimes all they need is a palate. And so I'm not saying that will happen in New Orleans. We see coaches fail way more often than that. But Sean Payton didn't win in Denver because the situation was tailor-made to go win in. He made it work.
We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back after this quick word from our sponsors. Ochsner Hospital for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine on Clearview Parkway is celebrating 5 years of exceptional achievements. The hospital's integrated team has successfully performed over 20,000 surgeries using the latest in cutting-edge technology. With nationally recognized services and impactful partnerships, they continue to lead the advancement of orthopedic and sports medicine care in our region.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number 1 grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. NewOrleans.Football is proudly sponsored by Urban South Brewery, the makers of Paradise Park Lager. I love supporting local breweries, and when looking for a refreshing, easy drinking beer, I always recommend Paradise Park. In fact, I think it might be the best game day beer out there. If you want something a little lighter, try Paradise Light. It's everything I love about Paradise Park with just 96 calories and 2.6 carbs. And if you're looking for a family-friendly place to watch the game, I'd recommend Urban South's Tap Room in the Lower Garden District. They've got 15 TVs, 30 unique beers on tap, and mouth-watering urban smash burgers. The whole family will want to make Urban South their new living room, because at Urban South, they take laid back seriously. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, your local insurance experts. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com. All right, our next segment is presented by Aaron Rose. The Saints have a lot of guys that are due to be free agents this offseason, and they're going to have some decisions to make on guys that, just that they got to figure out who they're going to sign. And some guys that they also need to figure out who to let go. We're going to kind of focus on some of the free agents right here and going through the list of them right now. Chase Young's one, Juwan Johnson's another one, Peyton Turner's a free agent, Willie Gay's a free agent, Tano's a free agent, Uli Udoh is a free agent, Lucas Patrick, Will Harris is due to reach free agency, Paulson Adebo, a big one there, Adam Prentice is due to be a free agent, and Ugo Amadi is another name, Dante Pettis got some play, Valdez Scantling, Shane Lemieux, Shamar Jean-Charles, Landon Young, Nephi Sewell is exclusive rights. They don't really count. So, yeah, I mean, that's the list of guys that are due to be free agents. Is there anyone they have to keep?
No. Have to? No. There is no one they have to keep. The good thing is that is a pretty affordable list. Anybody you want to keep, I think you can afford to keep. This goes back to the Derek Carr thing, though. If they cut Derek Carr and take the $50 million cap hit, they almost can't keep any of these guys over the league minimum. So that would rule Chase Young out. I'm torn on Chase Young in that I just think it's a luxury the Saints can't afford no matter what way they go. I said a lot. If he keeps up when he got hot toward the end of the season, if he kept that up, I think he'd price himself out of New Orleans. I don't think he did end up doing that. I think he'll probably be in a somewhat affordable range if they really liked everything they saw from him and how he fit in the building. He's a maybe, but I think he's going to cost more than $10 or $12 million a year, if not more than $15 million a year. So I kind of take him off the list. I tend to think maybe Paulson Adebo comes back because I just think they would value him more than anyone else after he's coming off that major injury, and they know what he brings, and maybe they want to move Alontae Taylor back to the slot, and you'd get a discount on Paulson Adebo. Juwan Johnson's another one that I don't think he'll cost that much because he didn't just break out, but he did some nice things at the end of the season. And then cheaper guys, like I liked Will Harris. I did like Pettis, but I think they'd be pretty cheap and affordable. I think Landon Young could come back for pretty cheap or whatever. So I could see guys coming back, but not a single must on the list.
Yeah. You said Chase 10 to 15 million?
I don't know.
Set a number. This will be our offseason bet. I think you value him more.
I think he'll get a 3-year, $45 million deal. And I wouldn't pay that if I'm
that comes out about to
$15 million a year.
I'm taking under on that. I'm going to take the under.
I think he'll get $15 million a year and multiple.
We're going to see. I'm going to put it on the under. I'm typing it up in my notes here right now. 15 million under. All right. The only, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm okay with letting everybody on this list go, honestly. I mean, on a one-by-one basis, I think you have to retain some of them just to kind of fill out your roster a little bit. But there's nobody I have to keep. Adebo might be kind of at the top of that list as like my highest priority person. But I'd like to get him on a 1-year deal. If Spencer Rattler's my quarterback next year, like if he's your starting quarterback, I'd carbon copy Jawan's contract, honestly. Like I'd let him keep making $6 million a year. I think he's more valuable with Rattler, with the way he likes to attack the field. And 450-ish yards for $6 million at tight end. It's kind of the going rate. Like I kind of felt like for a while that he was being paid too much, and then you kind of look at the list and it's like Kelsey $17 million, and then down in that $6 million range is Tyler Conklin, Juwan, Noah Gray, like those. It's kind of fair. It's kind of a fair deal at that spot. But I prioritize that position more if Spencer's my quarterback over Carr. But if Spencer's my quarterback, I don't know who the free agents are going to be this offseason, but I would be trying to make a significant investment in that tight end position just because of the way he attacks field. But there's no one here that is a must for me.
You know who I like on this list? I mentioned this during the Week 18 game. I think Will Harris was another hit in the vein of not quite as high profile, but like kind of a hit in the vein of Lonnie Johnson. Not quite. I got him. I think I got him was an even bigger hit, but they have continued to do a really good job of identifying veteran defensive backs who fit their defense. They might have an all new style of defense next year, though, unless they bring in Aaron Glenn. So
all their cheap free agents really they actually do pretty good at that. Like Lucas Patrick was consistently hurt, but like a decent fine for no money. Willie Gay, I think, was a fine depth player. Like they did okay, like on the cheap. They always do okay on the cheap free agent level. It's just kind of like they don't have any resources because all the money's gone.
Two names we didn't mention: Peyton Turner and Willie Gay. Let's say the league has just ignores Peyton Turner and he costs what Tano did when the Saints got him a few years ago, $3 million or less. Do you want him back or do you just move on?
I take him at the less.
Yeah, $3 million's like too much probably for this team. Yeah,
I'll try
$2 million.
Else. Yeah, I guess.
League veteran minimum.
Yeah, like something like I'd keep him on the or less.
Willie Gay Jr.
Yeah, or
no,
less.
Willie Gay Jr. cost. What did he cost this year? $3 million. You have to pay $3 million again.
I mean, $3 million is like nothing though. Like, honestly,
but not more.
Not more.
He didn't exceed expectations.
No.
He took this year as a prove it year and thought, finally, the league's going to recognize my worth, and I think he's kind of where he was a year ago.
He's a good energy culture guy that's good depth on your team. Like so for the those guys do have value at a certain price, especially if you're bringing in a new staff and you're trying to build a culture. Like guys that are going to buy in and push it, I think do have some value, and I think he's one of them guys. So yeah, I mean,
I know who we didn't talk about. MVS.
Oh, he's on the list. Yeah, is my fourth or fifth receiver great?
Yeah,
I'd pay him commensurate with whatever that market is.
Did he earn a? Do you think whatever team signs him, not did the Saints pay this, do you think whatever team signs MVS is paying $5 million now after what he did here?
No, because I think he kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. He's got all these guys have to be cheap to come back. Adam Prentice would be definitely on my list if he still only costs the veteran minimum.
Well,
and
tell me what the offensive system is. You know, like there might not be room for, if there's room for a fullback though, absolutely.
And Nephi Sewell, who, by the way, I mentioned this in the Fallout column. That was pretty cool. One pretty cool thing about Willie Gay and Pete Werner being hurt, made his first career start in this game for the Saints the other day, and played fairly well.
I've always liked him. Like I want to find out more about him.
Yeah, he could stay if he's cheap. Yep.
All right. Moving on to the next topic presented by Shea Bear Insurance, the Earhart Agency. When Mickey Loomis eventually speaks to the media, maybe this week or next week, there's a lot that's going to come up. What do you think? What do you think we're going to hear? Like, what's the main?
I don't think we're going to hear the whole plan laid out.
No.
But I don't think he's going to be as defiant as he was 12 months ago, or even halfway through the season. I think we'll hear some look behind the results. He just does not believe in the rash over dramatization. Like, he knows that the injuries changed this team from like being a team that was talked about differently. So he's not going to be like, hey, everyone was right. We need to blow this thing up, and we're going to blow this thing up. We're not going to hear that. But I think he'll be less defiant. I sure hope so. I sure hope there is a recognition, starting with him, that their reality has changed. For the first time since 2006, honestly, yes, a form of rebuilding needs to take place here. We've already seen them fire a coach mid-season, so their reality has changed. They're going to hire a coach who signifies some change of direction for the first time in 19 years. So I hope there's a lot of acknowledgement of that. But no, we're not gonna. People are not going to walk away from the press conference being like, "Oh, right, Mickey Loomis is saying everything I've been saying." It's not going to happen.
No, I think we'll definitely hear that they disagree with how far away they are. You know, the questions, I don't know what we're going to hear from them. You know, I don't know. I haven't talked to him since training camp. You talked to him after they fired DA. I haven't talked to him since training camp. But like, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to hear. I mean, I know my first question is going to be, you know, there's a report that you aren't willing to, you know, the coach is going to have to keep members of the staff. Going to ask him that, you know.
I've heard that poo-pooed, though.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, my reporting tells me that's not the truth, but I want to hear it from him. I want to hear him say, because, like, he's the one that's going to make these decisions. So that's going to be, you know, first and foremost, you know, what is the answer to that question? Because I think that's really important. And then, what's your view on the roster? Like, are you going to rebuild it? Are you willing to enter kind of an aggressive rebuild if the right candidate wants to do that? Or are you looking for a like-minded individual? The question we were asking before. I mean, I think those are the two big questions here, really, with the whole thing. Everything else is kind of, you know, window dressing and, you know, have you learned your lessons or whatever? You know, I think all that stuff's going to come up. But those are really the only two things I care about. Like, are you willing to rebuild it? Like, if that's what the coach wants to do, and, you know, can they hire their own staff? Those are the only things I care about. And I think on the own staff, I think there's a false perception here because he kept Pete Carmichael on the first staff. And I've said this, you know, multiple years now. Dennis Allen tried to get rid of Pete Carmichael to hire Liam Cohen. Yeah. Couldn't get Liam Cohen.
He also interviewed Jay Gruden and, God, why can I not remember? Another Jay Gruden type. Like, there were weeks that went by where they were, like, Dennis Allen was allowed to hire whoever he wanted to hire.
The behind the scenes on that, though, is he wanted Liam Cohen. Yeah. He only wanted Liam Cohen. Yeah. Liam Cohen was the person that he wanted so badly that when Liam Cohen told him he wasn't interested in the job, he offered him the job without doing an interview because he so believed in it. Liam Cohen just did not want to come. Like, you know, what did he do? He went to L.A., then something happened in L.A. and he went right back to Kentucky. Like, it was a weird situation, but he was willing to move on. And, you know, it wasn't dictated to him to keep Pete Carmichael. Like that, I think that's one thing that's very important to understand within all this, like, as we have these conversations. But, yeah, I just want to know if he's willing to rebuild it. Like, I think that's really, really important. That lays out the whole direction of the franchise. I don't know that we'll get an absolute direct answer on that, but I think, you know, whoever they hire is going to lead that, but is he willing to hire somebody that has a different point of view? I mean, that's the question.
The one thing that Mickey Loomis said to me when I interviewed him after Dennis Allen was fired, and that, you know, I've heard when I've tried to do my reporting to, you know, people familiar with all the thinking is an insistence on an open-mindedness that nothing is off the table. Like,
that's it.
Everything is actually being considered. Now, do they fall into familiarity? I think if Mike McCarthy becomes available, he immediately jumps to my front-runner list. There's some familiarity there. Aaron Glenn comes with familiarity. So I'm not saying, but I don't believe, look, we heard a very defiant Mickey Loomis in the famous press conference at the end of last year when he came armed with the cue cards defending Dennis Allen. He was kind of angry and defiant in that press conference. I think the list of candidates are coming in for interviews backs up the fact that they are going to take their time. They're going to consider previous head coaches, non-previous head coaches, offensive coaches, defensive coaches, coaches they've worked with, coaches they haven't worked with, coaches from this tree, coaches from that tree. So I don't believe we're going to get we believe in our way of doing things and we're not changing it. Oh, yeah. And you can go to hell if you disagree.
That's what it was last year.
I think they're more open. They're more open to trying things differently this year. If it ends up as Mike McCarthy or Darren Rizzi or Aaron Glenn, maybe you won't believe that. But I do think there is more acknowledgement that this team needs to choose a different path this time.
Yeah, as an organization, as individuals, everybody connected to this. Like, I would hope that there's been some level of ego death, over the last year. Like, there has to be. Like, and you have to learn from your mistakes. I mean, I guess that's another big question too. Like, is just what lessons have y'all taken from this? Like, is there anything that kind of changed? Because, like, this is the first major decision since bringing in the most major decision since bringing Sean in, and it didn't work. And then, you know, the other thing, like they got to get this right. Okay, you get the second chance? Sure.
I heard you say that yesterday.
You do not get a third chance
Exactly
to get this right. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with the Martin's question of the day. Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, half off of all diagnostic charges, and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. Services include AC and heating service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000. Martin's is your go-to destination for everything merry and bright this holiday season. From an unmatched selection of bourbon, whiskeys, and wines to gourmet food, gift baskets, and catering, Martin's has all your holiday needs covered. Family owned and operated since 1946, Martin's knows the perfect ways to celebrate this season with loved ones. Visit them in Metairie, New Orleans, or Baton Rouge, or shop online for the ultimate convenience. Whether you're raising a glass or looking for the perfect holiday gift, make it an easy and cheerful holiday with Martin's.
Score big with Saints Score. Win up to $100,000. Enter the second chance drawings for cool Saints prize packages. Play Saints Score scratch-offs from the lottery.
Whether you are a local New Orleanian or a fan in town for the game, get your pre- and post-game fired up at Aaron Rose. Local chaos and local love for the black and gold. Wake up and live with daily drink specials, mimosas, screwdrivers, Bloody Marys, and hot or frozen Irish coffees. All just $3 or $4 between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Aaron Rose, half a block from Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, 811 Conti Street.
Welcome to the Queen Casino, the crown jewel of entertainment destinations. From the thrill of gaming, where every spin and deal brings you closer to fortune, to the excitement of sports betting, where you can feel the rush of victory. Our spaces and catering menu are perfect for any event. From business meetings to grand celebrations, immerse yourself in our vibrant atmosphere with live music that keeps the party going all night long. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back, and we are going to close out on the Martin's question of the day. Martin's is home to hand-select bourbons and so much more. They got a great sandwich selection. Make sure you go down there and check them out. Martin's, so much more than wine. Will the new head coach have a strong influence over restructures and the cap for 2026? I mean, I think the restructure thing is kind of, you got to do what you got to do to create cap space, but
you can decide who gets restructured.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to be based upon like just the rebuild and cleaning up the cap and how do you make the pieces work without being overly aggressive. But as somebody smart in the league once told me, they said, you're either a team with cap problems or a team that's going to have cap problems, or you have no motion. Like, you know, like once you get some motion, you are on the path to having cap problems. Yeah. The Saints need to clean theirs up so they can be a team that A, gets motion, and B, gets cap problems again. But, you know, I think a lot of it's going to be to having cleaner books. I think a lot
Detroit and San Francisco are about to have the same reality, but it's, you know, as long as you win, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, decisions, here's the major decisions that have to be made. We talked about Derek Carr for about 15 minutes at the beginning of the show. That's a major one. If you decide to keep Carr, then you turn to what's your decision on Cam Jordan? What's your decision on Taysom Hill? I would list those as the next two biggest ones. I think Alvin Kamara is grandfathered in since he just signed his extension. Otherwise, he would have been a big one. I think DeMario and and Tyron are probably staying on the roster no matter what because they already took their pay cuts last year. And then the minor decisions after that come down to like Nathan Shepard, Jamal Williams, Cedric Wilson, Colin Saunders. All those decisions, I think the coach will absolutely have say in them.
Yeah, I agree with that. We got all kinds of great coverage on NewOrleans.Football, a story laying out kind of everything we're hearing about the coaching search and what direction they're going to go. I got the Nick cast on there, Mike has the members only.
I was in the
podcast.
netcast.
Yeah, Mike was in the netcast. But yeah, a lot of exclusive content on there, exclusive podcasts. If you're liking all that stuff, make sure you're signing up for it. We're going to have everything you need to know about this coach search and so much more over the next several weeks. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.